we would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mhm.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
Flag
United
United
States
United
of
States
America,
of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic
which
for which it
stands
stands,
stands
one
One
nation,
nation
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts, March 28th, 2025, order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 20, allowing remote and hybrid meeting options for public bodies through June 30th, 2027. This meeting is being recorded. I'd like to open the regular meeting. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of June 12th, 2025. Do I have a motion, or do I have an emotion?
So moved.
Second,
Please say your names.
Tim Morton.
Dale Weber.
Is there any discussion? I'll call a roll call vote. Hugh Morton,
Tim Morton, aye.
Gail,
Dale Weber, aye.
Deborah,
Deborah Chialfi, aye.
Mark,
Mark Schmidt, aye.
Tim Gillespie,
Tim Gillespie, aye.
John Bell,
John Bell, aye.
Tim Caton. He's on the phone. Is he there?
He was. Don't see him anymore.
Tim Caton? It passed.
Yeah, I don't see him.
It passed with Tim Caton not replying and Phil Gillespie being absent.
Betty,
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I did see something, and I think it should be corrected before it's a minor point, but if you look on item O, the Affordable Housing Trust is the title. And
Yes.
it's page 3 on my printout. So it says in the middle of the paragraph, Tim Caton has volunteered to be liaison for Howland Hall. Well, on the
Yes.
previous page, that I was appointed liaison. Yeah.
And you're not the liaison for the Affordable Housing Trust either.
No, well, you are, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
So,
So
well, I
would,
guess we can
yeah.
go ahead and correct those.
all right.
Yep.
So I move that we accept these minutes as amended.
And the amendments are that it should be
That
Mark
Mark Schmidt is right.
Howland Hall, and Betty Slade will be the liaison for the Affordable Housing Trust. Okay, so we need to.
Okay.
I have a motion? Do I have a second?
second,
Whoever that was.
Tim Caton,
Can I just point out, I think the way it's written with the semicolon, there is a separation, like Howland Hall dash Mark Schmidt, semicolon, Bicentennial Park dash Tim Caton, semicolon, and Affordable Housing Trust dash Betty Slade. So those are correct, aren't they?
Yep, this is a different,
Paragraph 3?
This is-
further on in the minutes, item.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Sorry, I was looking at the
Further down in
wrong
the
paragraph.
I think,
There you go.
yes, that's down there at the bottom.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
the page. Okay, I need a second. My name is Dale. Okay, I'll take a roll call. Hugh,
Tim Morton, aye.
Dale,
Dale Weber, aye.
Deborah,
Deborah Chialfi, aye.
Mark,
Mark Schmidt, aye.
Tim Gillespie,
Tim Gillespie, aye.
John Bell,
John Bell, aye.
Tim Caton.
Tim Caton, aye.
Good. Betty Slade, aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. I'm closing the regular meeting, the first portion of the regular meeting, and opening the public hearing to discuss projects forwarded by CPC to the public hearing for recommendation to town meeting in 2026. So the public hearing here is basically to discuss any suggestions by the public or by the members of the CPC as to projects that the CPC would like to see pursued. We often don't have anybody come to these meetings. We do this because it's required. I think the last one someone came in was John Bell years ago when he wanted to, to do the project in the head of Westport. But I was wondering if any of you have been thinking about areas that the CPC should be looking into.
Betty,
Timothy, Tim?
there's a project for recreation where we're trying to talk with the Westport Youth Athletic Group about pickleball courts on their section of land. That hasn't gone very far yet because we're pretty busy with playgrounds, but that's something on a burner on our particular stove.
Okay. I was wondering about Affordable Housing Trust. We have not had any new, well, we've had 2 new units, I guess, with Habitat for Humanity, but it doesn't seem to be moving. They put out an RFP and didn't get a response. They got 1 response, but it wasn't viable. I was wondering if there's anything anybody has been thinking about that area. What kind of something we should be thinking about in the future. We just keep adding 200,000 and then they continue with the housing office and so forth. But getting projects on the SHI is not happening. Tim?
Yeah.
Are they thinking seriously about the high school? The old
No.
high school?
That doesn't seem to be, from what I understand, it's not in what they're talking about at all. I know that they made in the very early days, they applied for that, but it would basically be turning the property over to another group, a company that would develop it. And people didn't want to give up the high school.
At a planning board meeting a few weeks ago, there was this, maybe a month ago now, discussion amongst our board on that topic, because having seen the current proposal for the high school, the reuse into a multi-use community center, et cetera, there was no mention of housing. And we always, on the board, we always talk about the need for affordable housing in this town, how people are in need of it. And it's a little baffling that nothing has happened, but we just saw that high school, the old high school, was a potential, has the potential to be converted into affordable housing. But you need to find a developer who would do that, and it would take the burden off the town rather than the town having to come up with $72 million to convert the building into a community center. This would be a sort of it could be a long-term lease or a lease and sale and lease back. There are a number of different ways it could be done. So those are just some things that were batted around, and I'm just saying that it is, it is on our radar, and we're sort of we're ready to look at any proposal that somebody would come forward with, but until that happens, we can't do much.
I've discussed this when I've attended the Affordable Housing Trust meetings and asked them to get in touch with the planning board. Has that happened?
No,
I mean, the planning board would be their best way of getting something like this done. But I think originally they would have to sell the property, and then they would sell it for affordable housing. And then some company would come in and build affordable housing. That's what I understand. It wasn't that they would use this particular building. But that's one idea. John has something to say.
Well, yeah, from people I talk to, there's not a lot of strong support to lose all the fields up there. There's 4 baseball fields and a couple of makeshift soccer fields in there, and that's what I hear about. We want to maintain and keep those fields. There aren't, even with the fields on 177, there's still not enough fields for baseball. And we know how much it costs to make new fields because they want them to do that at the campgrounds.
well, an RFP could be put out to housing developers with the stipulation that the fields are to remain in use for the town. And any other portion of the building. The building's 155,000 square feet. That's 3.5 acres of floor space. If they wanted to say, well, we'd like the auditorium to be left for the town use, or the gymnasium as well, that could be put into it. And there's still plenty of area to be developed into the housing portion. So you could do a combination of uses there.
This was one of the as I said, one of the very earliest proposals. This has been going on for years and years. And so a committee was appointed, and that committee has come up with recommendations. And I don't know where it's going from here. Does anybody? I mean,
No.
Anybody been following what the recommendations are? Tim Gillespie?
I've attended 1 or 2 of the public meetings that they had, and I've read the reports that they've come up with. And one of the big elements is senior council on aging space. That's one of the big things, keeping the gymnasium available for recreation, and then sort of miscellaneous stuff that including, I think, renting off portions for private use, for maybe even businesses, I think. But a lot of different stuff, some of which doesn't seem realistic.
But also to move the town buildings over there, the town offices over there.
Yep, that's the other one.
We've told the Affordable Housing Trust that if they would move on this, that we could be helpful. As I said, they did once and then they didn't follow up, and now it seems to be off the table for various reasons. Deborah?
I guess the thing I remember about this plan was the recent consulting group that they brought in to look at the whole project and even bring the lens back and look at other outbuildings in the town to try to create more of a master plan. They looked at the high school and they thought the stretch code, and I'm not an architect, but this is just what I've been told, it's too expensive to try to make that particular building housing, so that they should look at that building for a mixed use, certainly include the fields for their current use, and then try to surplus the annex building for housing. And that is a much more reasonable size, which brought up the whole concept you and I talked about, Betty, with protecting playgrounds that had already been built with CPC money. Because if that other building becomes a surplus building for housing, what could happen to the playground there? So that conversation began. But I thought the whole consulting project was about really looking at the whole potential of all these different buildings, the town hall building, keeping that the same, renovating it, making sure certain offices remain there because it's centrally located. Other offices could be brought to the high school. Senior center could be built there. Gymnasium could be repurposed. They had this whole plan that was, I don't know, millions and millions of dollars. It would have to be approved by the town, but it was a very comprehensive plan. And I think the next step is for affordable housing to maybe go talk to them about where could they fit in before this thing goes to some kind of a vote. Because they would have to bring it to the town, I think.
Well, it's the request, the last I've heard was $72 million
Right.
in tax money that would be needed. And it keeps going up.
Well, if you keep waiting, it's going to keep going up. I mean, just everything gets more expensive. I don't know. Shouldn't affordable housing go and meet with this consultant and get put their chits on the table of what they would want to see here and how they could fit in? So at least they're part of the planning process.
I've heard that there are issues with water and sewer, septic too. There isn't, it would, if it would be housing.
You said the annex has issues like that? The annex?
No, the new school, the old school.
The old school. Yeah. I also heard there's water issues there. So I don't know. I mean, the next is there anything we can do to jumpstart this? I just don't know what our role is here.
I just think that the planning board, because they have got it in their planning, in their master plan, and they talked about it, the planning board could take some initiative on this. Mark?
Yeah, my screen's all is frozen. Is anybody else's? No, I'm the only one. Here.
I know, we do see it frozen.
What?
We can see you.
Okay. Well, anyway, well, yes, and I mean, I don't know. I think if the Affordable Housing Trust would be to take the lead on finding a developer, put out an RFP to developers, and there are many of them who are very experienced in converting old high schools, old school buildings into housing. It's been done in, all around in Rhode Island and various places. So it's not an impossible, or it's not a rare occurrence. There are people out there, and yes, all of the things you mentioned, like the sewer and the water, those are big issues. But that's why, the town should not expect, if they enter into an agreement to sell the building, not expect to get anything for it because of the costs of conversion. And but that's all right. It takes it off our hands, and we get what we want, which is housing. And we can retain, as I said earlier, things that we think are valuable to the town, like the playing fields and the auditorium, the gymnasium, or incorporate the senior house. What is it called? the
COA.
Council on Aging.
Yeah, Council on Aging. They could have a corner of the building too, because it's so large. So all of those things can happen. I don't know. I mean, I'll talk to our chairperson and see whether there is an interest in the planning board taking more of a proactive approach here. But I think the affordable housing would be also very be the key ingredient here to push this ahead.
So Mark, what I was thinking, it was the committee has come up with recommendations. They've looked into it, and I get the next step would be to ask the town for the money. Okay, so I think they're that far. So there's a committee that's established to do that, who's made recommendations. So it would be that committee that needs to be first approached.
That is, these things are all where the town does not have the money.
It would have to be a debt exclusion. It would.
Yeah, like that, and how well. Anyway, that's really all I want to say.
That's the huge issue. It's the huge issue. But if Is it too late? Are we too late to do this? I mean, because it's about the third time a committee has been formed, and this committee has come up with recommendations. And from what I understand, they're moving ahead with them.
Well, I think I think they're called the Long-Term Building Committee, and they may want to present these options at the town meeting. But I can tell you that, as SU is pointing out, the town has no appetite to spend this kind of money. I don't think.
So there's thinking of it as like a secondary suggestion, again, it'd be down the road, that you sell the property with an affordable housing restriction on it.
Something like that. I mean, what we were trying to do is, at the planning board, we had asked the chairperson of that long-term building committee to come to attend, and he did not. So, but the intention was to discuss with him and say, well, what you've come up with, it's all fine, but you haven't thought about, I'm sure they've thought, but you haven't addressed housing, and housing is a real need here. And if it can be done in a manner that turns the building over to a third party, and the town is not spending its own money, I think that's a possible avenue to solve this problem.
Hugh?
I'll throw in my 2 cents worth. One of the things to keep in mind is if you have, I don't know how many units it would be low-income housing, but a lot of units which produce a lot of people and a lot of kids, and that adds into the school population and the school issues that we already have. So it's all right to talk about units and this and that, but the other number of people have that on their minds, I'm sure, and they're not terribly favorable inclined toward that approach.
Well, I guess that I would answer that the town is getting very old. The proportion of the elderly in town is growing very rapidly, and without young people, it could die. So that argument, I understand the argument that increased need, but we also need young people in Westport. And we also need housing for police and fire and school teachers and so
I've
forth.
been surprised.
It doesn't go to police.
I Sodom Road regularly, and a whole bunch of new houses have come up there. There's another project going on Sodom Road closer to 177. So there's a fair amount of construction going on. This is market rate, I'm sure, but it's housing.
John? You cut yourself off. You muted yourself.
There we go. I was just saying, it doesn't go to police and fire. The housing.
You mean they don't qualify?
They don't offer it to us. No.
Wait, you have to bid. It's a lottery.
Yeah.
And the predominant number, the age, it's elderly people who are at Noquochoke. It's predominantly elderly people. If you look at it, I've asked all those questions to the Affordable Housing Trust.
We had talked about this a while ago, and we had looked into, well, maybe talking about the town, talking about what are the unforeseen costs of affordable housing? That the more teachers, bigger schools, more police, more fire, the ambulance. So that's a lot of things that we don't discuss, but it comes into effect with the more people in town.
Yeah. So when we all die off, John, you gotta have young people.
Well, I go to a lot of the school functions. There are a lot of kids there.
I
But not
think we should move on.
anyway, that's another thing. So I think that maybe if Mark could talk to the planning board and see if they could invite the chair of that committee. Who is it? Christopher Thrasher? Isn't he the chair? John? I mean, Mark? Must have lost Mark.
There we go. Betty?
Yeah,
I don't know, they install Google or somebody installs, Microsoft installs some new software and it's all haywire. So I lost communication, but I've got you on the phone. Yeah, we invited them to that last meeting and he didn't appear. So we can try again.
okay, I'll attend the meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust and talk to them again.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? Any other, historic preservation? We have a very few buildings that are owned, that aren't private, that are historic, and they're in pretty good shape. We've been.
Betty.
Sorry, who is?
Tim Caton.
Oh, Tim Caton.
Yep. Betty, what about, the possibility there is some land and at the housing authority
Yeah.
and on Route 6, and there is some talk about that. And the director of housing authority, he's supposed to start looking into some of that, as you well know, but we haven't met in July and August, and we're meeting next Wednesday, so I can report back and see perhaps if that's some avenue we can look at too.
Yeah, I met with them too. I was there too, remember?
Right.
And
Yeah.
saying that could be maybe 4 or 5 units. Of course,
Yeah.
surprisingly, such a small number, but it's worth it to try it because the land is there, and you don't have to buy land, and the activities could be incorporated into the existing
Correct.
Greenwood Terrace. So
Mhm.
yes, that'll be good, and continue to meet with Craig.
Yep.
Dutra about that.
Okay.
So we've had the recreation, maybe the pickleball. We are going to have a project probably of the playground at the Macumber School coming up, and maybe something of this nature. The housing authority, we have that. Open space, I spoke with Ross Moran, and he said there might be something this coming year, but he didn't say what it was. So
Yeah.
any other comments? Go ahead.
Just
Mark?
to add to the land trust, the Westport Land Trust is very active, and fortunately, and they actually have 3 projects that they're working on right now. And I asked him about the possibility of CPC helping out, and certainly he would like it, but he said, we don't have the time. These 3 property owners want it to happen now and the next few months or so. So,
I
but
see.
fortunately, they're very active, and they're preserving many acres in this town to help keep it the way we all would like to see it.
All right. So we should move on perhaps, and close. Oh, Deborah, sorry. Deborah?
Yes, I just had to unmute myself. I have a question about the fact that Mark just mentioned that the trust can't wait for monies to come through because CPC is kind of a slow process. So I get that. Similar to the way that we bank monies for affordable housing trust and we grant monies to them without a project that's identified, is there a way to do something similar for open space so that we could bank grants to, say, this entity, and they'd have some cash earmarked for open space, and we could, start building that each year like we do for Affordable Housing Trust? They have I don't know how much they have now. Affordable Housing Trust. We just did another grant for what, 200,000 last year. Is there a concept that would allow us to do that for open space, similar to housing?
Affordable Housing Trust is a town trust. It's a town by a bylaw. They have a special relationship, and CPA is able to do that. the land trust is not. It's a private organization, and we can't advance monies to private
Okay.
organizations. So,
Right.
yeah, that's a good idea. We could probably at one time give them a substantial grant, but it's always late. It takes time.
It has to be site specific, I assume. It has to be for a project that's already identified. Yeah.
And
Okay, got it. Thanks.
we have to have the conservation restriction in place. So before we can give the money, we have to, it's a lot more complicated.
Got it.
In advance. So I think I'm going to close the public hearing. So this is close of public hearing at 7:05, and open the regular meeting. So the first item on the agenda is the discussion of work of liaisons for CPA projects. Because of the complications of the Sanford School projects, Deborah and I have gotten together 2 or 3 times to discuss what liaisons should do, and we felt that that we have not given enough instructions to the liaison, something written that they could have, as well as something they could give to the project managers. And in some cases, for example, recreation, which is a town project, Tim is both the committee, the commission, and he is also the project manager. So I think this kind of thing could be helpful. That's a public project, and we'd have a separate, as you could see with I sit around, a separate listing for public projects as opposed to private projects. I don't know if you've looked at it. I don't know if you have any questions, but we will be trying to meet, I think, with some of the private liaisons, the liaisons for the private projects, Deborah and I might turn this completely over to Deborah. She's so good at these things, and meet with them, and I just listen, and we will just say what you need to do. And there are exceptions that are going to come up. And when exceptions come up, you don't have to follow every single one of these steps, but you could ask us, and eventually everybody will understand what the liaison needs to do. In the past, we've had projects where, for example, the land trust, they know exactly what to do. WYA knows, the Historical Society knows how to do, but when you get a new project in, they may not.
Yeah.
Or a new project manager. So we need for us to be educated on how to handle projects so that we make sure that they follow the rules, that they know what the rules are, they follow the rules where they can ask for help, that they submit their bills to a liaison. The liaison is a very important part of this, because you keep track, the liaison keeps track of the expenditures, and then gives it to the chair, to me, to look at, and I will approve them, and then they go forward. This is the way that it should work. That's very important. So that too much money is not, they aren't overcharging or charging for the wrong things, this kind of thing. And we have grant agreements. We've sent the grant agreements to the private parties, at least. I don't know if we sent them to the public projects. But are there any questions about what a liaison does? Anything new?
Eddie, I like the guidelines. I think that will definitely help working with the project manager.
Yes.
To give them a hard copy, and they know what their expectations are as well as we do.
I agree. I think they're very good. Mm-hmm. The also connected with this is I've been reading the coalition website, and they talk about MOUs with town projects. So I've had some complications with one of the projects for which I'm the monitor with the town. And I think it's due to misunderstanding again, and not knowing what a liaison really does. Although I would state I'm the liaison, they didn't get it, what that meant. So I was thinking we could also do MOUs with town projects. So for example, if we have a recreation commission project, or the town hall project or an annex project, then we would have an MOU with the town, so we know the town will follow the rules. They'll report, they won't overexpend, they'll do their RFPs, all of this. We've just before assumed that the town people know how to do that and do it, because we've had such good experience with the Recreation Commission, basically, on this, and with the annex, because again, same person, Tim Gillespie, was involved with it. So I'm thinking of an MOU. Hugh?
I was just gonna say, I think that's a good idea, especially we're gonna have a new town administrator.
Yes,
And I mean, Jim was familiar with all these things. The new person may or may not be, so even better to have an outline of how things are supposed to go.
okay. Okay, so Deborah and I will work on that.
You have to
The-
tell me, excuse me, what is an MOU?
A memorandum of
Memorandum of
understanding,
Oh,
understanding.
okay.
not a legal contract or.
No,
or-
I know what that is. It's just these abbreviations sometimes.
Sorry.
So many, but yeah. All right.
Sorry, yeah. And there are, of course, samples of it around the state. The coalition is beginning to pick up on things that it never talked about before, because when it began, the CPA funding, there was no experience with that law. And as they've gotten experience, they're realizing what CPC should be doing around the states to protect the project and to protect the CPC and the town. So this is why these things we haven't really talked about before, because they've just suddenly come up on the in front of us, and they hadn't been before. Deborah, did you have anything else to say about those two topics?
On the guidelines, I just want to point out, we tried to make them simplified because it started to have too much paper and we didn't want to freak anybody out getting a 10-page guideline. So we used links on the public projects guideline because that's a little bit more complicated. So we had, they're very similar documents, the public and the private. I think it might be useful to even have a definition of what is a public versus what is a private, so people understand why they're getting which guideline they're getting. And then the links, if you go through and you click on the links, you can see there's a handy way to get, for example, prevailing wages. It goes right to the Massachusetts labor website. You click on Westport and you get all this information, but it'd be 25 pages what you get. So we didn't want to put that in. So instead we used hot links to give people that guideline as they go through the process. I mean, I hope it's helpful. I've never been a liaison, so it'd be interesting for me to be monitoring people who are liaisons and telling them what to do. But I'm happy to shadow you, Betty, to make sure things are going well. They're kind of, I mean, I think the guideline is pretty, it's pretty straightforward. So we should have success with giving people that.
So I've revamped completely the CPC, the
FAQ.
FAQ, which is on the webpage, by the way. It's a new.
FAQ, what's that?
Frequently asked questions.
Oh yeah, okay.
So when we, having a new, for us who post all the time or have to have stuff on there, Maria can tell you, having a new website is tough. You learn all kinds of new things get screwed up, and they go in the wrong place. So we've been working diligently to get everything under control. I'm waiting for Deborah to respond to my new write-up of the questions and answers. And if it's okay, then I will post that. And that does address every one of these topics. It addresses what is a private project, what's different from a public project, when meetings are held, who are the members, just everything. So people, if they ask you a question, or if you have a question, you can just go to the website, to our web page, and you can pull that up. We have pretty much everything you need there. We'll put on these guidelines for liaisons on there too. So if you ever have any questions or somebody asks you, they can go look at the website, or they can call, for now, me, and then in the future, Deborah or somebody else. The third thing we talked about, Deborah, was whether or not to do a new application. We looked at other towns, and our application is okay. It gets the work done. Again, we have to guide people. I've received, for example, this year an application. I send it back and told them what they needed to do. And that's very helpful. If you get an application in and somebody says, well, these are the things, before you really submit it, be sure you answer these questions, that you go to the various commissions, and do the things that you need to do. And about budgets, about contingency plans, all this kind of stuff. So we, at this point, are leaving the application alone. We'll see how that goes in the future. Okay, the next topic is, we did talk about MOUs. The protections for land where CPA funds are used for playgrounds and recreation projects. Again, in my review of the coalition website, this popped up, the whole question of, are you protecting the land upon which playgrounds are being developed that CPA funds have paid for? I mean, couldn't the town just tear it down or sell it and people take it away and all of that? So it's not a requirement of CPA that there be a restriction like there is if CPA funds are used to buy the land. It has to have a restriction. But if we put a playground on it, it's not required, but it's highly advised. And one of the little differences between, yes, this is from the coalition. One of the differences about playgrounds is that they have a limited life. It's different from a conservation restriction. Tim, this is something I've been thinking about. So we pay with private donations, with CPA funding, we pay for a playground. It's going to last at least 25 years. So there should at least be a restriction on that property that for 25 years, it has to remain as a maintained playground, rather than into perpetuity. That's one possibility. The other possibility is saying it could be into perpetuity. We've already given out, our town meeting has recommended funds for 2 projects. The one up on Gifford Road, and then the Bicentennial, and then the annex. The annex is finished, the Bicentennial is just beginning. And I contacted Dana and Tim and asked them to think about this and to think about what the Recreation Commission thinks about this. And Tim has something to say about this. I think he's going to do a little presentation.
Well, I went on the site that you led us to, Betty, which is the coalition website about outdoor recreation. And they have what's called an Article 97 that requires that any land that any project in recreation that CPA money goes towards has to be restricted there has to be a restriction. And for something like Bicentennial Park, that would be fairly easy to define that space and put a restriction on it. When you get to a piece of property that has a building on it, you're not allowed to put community preservation money onto a recreation project if there's a building on that land. So you have to square off those pieces of the land that has the recreation and put a restriction on that. And on for the town hall annex, that would involve the playground, and it also involves the back lot, which has the stage and where we put the outdoor movies and all that concert stuff.
Someone's got a child. Has someone got a child in the room and their speaker on? Could you turn your speakers off?
What do you think?
Can Maria mute them? Well, anyways, the Recreation Commission has to think about this, and we're going to have to think about it with some help in terms of exactly how you do this stuff. I don't think we're going to be reinventing the wheel, but it could be that the coalition has, you know, as Betty said, they're coming out with realizing things that they didn't realize before. And I think this is one of those things they didn't put any emphasis on and didn't focus on, but it's now becoming an issue. And we have to put some restrictions on the land that we've already put recreation money into, and any future projects that has to go hand in hand with those future projects. And I'm not sure exactly how we do it. Clearly there has to be some legal help on that.
Yes. Yes.
But we could pay for that legal help through our administrative money.
Yes. Yes, we can. And if the school, Macomber School comes up with the project, that's also town property. So they're all three town properties. There is, though, the argument, I think it goes a little further. Can you, no, it may be the other way. Towards
I
the
only
top.
grabbed 2 pages that I thought were significant.
Okay.
I mean, the other stuff they talked about were, I didn't think were relevant to anything in Westport.
Well, I was just thinking that it says when considering, it's determine if the property is dedicated recreational use, and there are a few ways recreational lands can be identified. So the first one is the land is under control of the Board of Park Commissioners or whatever board, committee, or department has care, custody, and control of parks and recreation land. That could be the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, usually it is.
Yeah, so if it's under their control, that's enough, basically.
But if you decide to sell the annex, what happens then?
That's exactly right. But I'm speaking of in a normal case. So the annex would be because of the different parts to the annex. So what would you, go ahead. I got Deborah to have a comment. Go ahead, Deborah.
Yeah, just commenting, if the annex was on the block for changing its use, I mean, wouldn't you just either subdivide the playground piece and sell off just the building without that playground, so that the new owner would have to design whatever they design around that playground? So if it's going to be housing, that playground just would still remain. I mean, wouldn't we just cross that bridge when the annex came up for some kind of reuse? Because the town controls
They
it.
have to do that with an approval not required plan. It wouldn't pass zoning. I mean, it's clearly wouldn't be a big enough lot to develop. And so it'd have to be an A&R plan, I would think. You think that's right, Mark?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, well, it depends. I mean, I guess they can look for a zoning, a variance or something, but that complicates it.
Yeah.
But there's also we've also developed the back, Deborah. The back of it leaves a very small area given parking, need for parking. But the playgrounds, it just leaves a very small area. It is interesting. In that case, maybe we could have like a 25-year restriction on it. Well,
Maybe
instead
we
of,
don't sell the building. How about that as an idea?
or use the same building. Deborah. Can't hear you.
Sorry, have to keep muting and unmuting. So the other option is if there is surplusing the annex and there's all this other recreational funding that's been spent, why not require the new owner, whoever that might be, to mitigate by replacing those same facilities or paying the town to replace those facilities in another location? I mean, that just mitigation money. Is that something that could be done to, because you don't want to tie your hands completely if you want to have some flexibility on master planning later. So why not create something that gives you some rights to negotiate?
I think that would mean it would never sell. You know, from a purchaser standpoint. But I do think the restrictions preserve the status quo, as it were. And if there's something that comes up 25 years or whatever down the road, then a negotiation at that point, I think, is more likely to be successful than having a mandated major investment in nothing, as it were, from the purchasing standpoint.
Tim?
There are restrictions on that building already because we spent so much community preservation money on that building. So whoever buys it isn't going to be able to do a whole lot to changing its appearance. And that's a challenge for someone that's trying to make money on a project.
Tim, actually, we put no restrictions on that building.
Well, we should.
Well, because it again,
Oh, because it's the towns.
in the very early years, all the way, these things weren't thought of. And there is nothing in CPA that says that just because you spend money on a building, that it has to remain that way, unless there's a restriction. So that's why this year we've put this restriction on the Bell School, because that we could do, and they accepted it, and that's the way it worked. But for the various things we've done at Town Hall and the Annex and COA, there are no restrictions. The only restriction that exists are there are 3 historic buildings, and that the Historical Commission can determine for 1 year they can't be torn down. That's the only restrictions, because it's town. It was the idea the town wouldn't do these things, sort of. That's what we followed with the rules of the CPA. And that's across the state. It's across the state. Now it's being realized, wow, you've invested all this money in town buildings, and they want to sell them. So, however, I think within Westport for the Town Hall, there is the feeling that you do want to preserve that building, and that you would ask the Historical Commission to weigh in on what can be done to it. Because, as you said, most people think that's the case. It's just legally, it isn't the case. So, but that's why the difference is the playground. We could put some sort of a limited restriction on it there. And then the one in the Bicentennial, we would have a permanent restriction and a permanent restriction also at the Macomber School.
Well, yeah, Betty,
Yes?
I'm sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand in this using the phone, but anyway, I think this is a very interesting discussion. I think there are many sides to the issue, and you have to remember that if you put restrictions on, let's say, the annex, then you're restricting its future value, and there may be the day when the town wants to maximize the value of that building by selling it just for some commercial use or something, so that there are pros and cons to this argument. for
We're
this.
just not supposed to be giving money for that, CPA funding for that purpose, to maximize the value of the property. It's to protect the historical integrity of the building.
Well, but it may not have any really historical. I mean, the day, 50 years from now, people may just want to get rid of that building, and you'll have trouble selling it if there are these restrictions on it. So
That's
I don't know how you can be. We've got to keep in mind, future uses of a building when you put a restriction on it.
well, the restriction is that in the future, that it will be, any change would go before the historical commission to preserve the integrity of that building. And CPA funding is supposed to be for that. I'm just telling you what the rules are. Anyway, I think that we should, Tim Gillespie, maybe look into this whole issue and see what the Board of Selectmen think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing gets more complicated. I gotta let my dog out.
Anybody else have any?
I was
comments?
just gonna say that I think Mark is right, but these are special purpose funds, so that's part of the background of the legislation, et cetera, requiring preservation, as preservation is likely to decrease the value of the property, but that was the decision made up front in putting in those restrictions. So we're stuck, I think, on it.
The purpose really is to protect the building. It's and maintain its historical integrity. I mean, if you look at the town hall was built in 1938. It's what they call a relatively new building, but it's the town hall, and the annex is an old high school, named for Milton Earl. It has a lot of interest historically to people, more than what it looks like. It's more what it is. So it probably, especially internally, could be developed into, like, it'd be very small scale senior housing or housing, but it's possible. And again, you might be, that's again a cost thing, but CPA could help with. So you could maintain the integrity of the external part and also make, affordable housing for seniors, say, in that building.
I think we should move on. My lasagna is burning.
All righty. Okay, the next item is the list of bills paid. Boy, this has been back and forth, hasn't it? I think this is the third iteration. Sorry for all that complication. I'm going to read the project and the cost, and if you want to hold, say hold. If you don't have any holds, in the end, we will approve the total amount. So the first is a payment to Granite City Electric Supply for the Sanford School Project FY24 of $494.03. The second is FY25 Cemetery Website Project expense paid to Site Industries for $3,937.50. The third is Community Preservation Coalition dues, which you've already approved. It was paid from administrative funds, $2,875. The Bell School Historic Preservation Restriction, we have a contract with Eric Dray, and he's a consultant. This is the first half of the project. We've already submitted the restriction to Mass Historic Commission. So except for their response, it's finished, but there will be another payment to Eric. The next is, and that's $1,710. The next is the recording of the 4 grant agreements for the FY26 private CPA projects paid to New Bedford Registry of Deeds from administrative funds for $420. And the next is the public hearing announcement tonight and paid to the Westport Shorelines for administrative funds for $61.50. The next is the clerical expenses for the period January 25 to August 25 to Maria Branco, excellent CPC clerk, from administrative funds for $1,181.90. For 8 months, that's not bad, guys. So, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. We accept that.
I'll second that. Hugh
Okay,
Morton seconds.
all right, Hugh, there's a motion and a second. Roll call, Hugh Morton,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Dale,
Dale Weber, aye.
Deborah,
Deborah Chialfi, aye.
Mark,
Mark Schmidt, aye.
Tim Gillespie,
Tim Gillespie, aye.
John Bell,
John Bell, aye.
Tim Caton,
He's muted.
Betty Slade, aye. Tim, are you there? Are you muted?
He's muted. 4 others.
Okay,
How did you get in?
no response from Tim Caton. That's approved unanimously, those who responded. Thank you. And the next meeting is October 9th at 2025. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We adjourned at 7:26.